This is the Erin Cruz Show. Politics for the people and by the people. With your host, Erin Cruz.
I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
Finally, someone let me out of my cage. Now, time for me is nothing cause I'm counting no A's. Nah, I couldn't be there. Nah, you shouldn't be scared. I'm good at repairs and I'm under each snare. Intangible, bet you didn't think, so I command you to. Panoramic view, look, I'll make it all manageable. Pick and choose, sit and lose, all you different crews. Chicks and dudes, who you think is really kicking tunes. Picture you getting down in a picture tube, like you lit the fuse. You think it's fictional, mystical, maybe spiritual hero who appears in you to clear your view when you're too crazy. Lifeless to those, the definition for what life is. Priceless to you because I put you on the high. You like it? Gun smoke, you're righteous with one toe. You're psychic among those, possess you with one go.
I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
The essence, the basics, without it you naked. Allow me to make this childlike in nature. Rhythm, you have it or you don't, that's a fallacy, I'm in them. Every sprouting tree, every child of peace, every cloud and sea. You see with your eyes and see destruction and demise. Corruption in the skies from the surprise. Now I'm sucked into your lives through rust, so not as muscles, but percussion to provide for me as a guide. Y'all can see me now cause you don't see with your eye. You perceive with your mind, that's the inner. So I'ma stick around with Russ and be a mentor. Bust a few rhymes so motherfucker remember what the thought is. I brought all this so you can survive when law is lawless. Right, feeling sensations that you thought was dead. No squealing, remember that it's all in your head.
I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine.
Hello and welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. We have on the line with us Sergeant Major Juan Hidalgo, retired. He actually ran for United States Congress in the 51st District in 2018. He ran an awesome race. He gave the incumbent a complete challenge, made him sweat, and we want to hear what the rest of the campaign was like and the election night event, and a little bit about what you're up to now, Juan. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing very well. As I would say, God bless you. God bless America. You know, it's just a minor setback, but, you know, we're all well. My team, my family, everyone's in good spirit. So, you know, it's just a process, and we enjoyed it. It's all about service to this country. Mm-hmm. So there's no time to be down, or no time to have what people call election blues. That's just the way it goes. So we continue to move forward.
Right. Well, you know, the one thing about you, Juan, is you're a born leader, and your community, you've created these bonds and built these relationships. I know over a long period of time, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. As a matter of fact, you know, I see you flourishing in a short time here, at least in your community work. I mean, do you think that you may run again or not? Or do you want to give us just a peek?
Yeah, that's quite a compliment. You know, it is about service to the American people, and we've made a lot of great friends, a lot of good connections, and you know, as I was, you know, there's just been so much outpouring of people calling us, texting us, emailing us, and telling us, hey, we need you in there. We need you to run again. Don't get discouraged. We're not discouraged. But, you know, so that's a good feeling, because we believe that a lot of people still really desire to have some real leadership in Congress, representing the 51st Congressional District. You know, the fact of the matter is they just don't right now. It's still mind-boggling how they would, you know, elect or how it happened that somebody that has done absolutely nothing for 6 years, and at the end of 8 years, it'll be the same thing, I'm sure. Why should he do anything? He doesn't have to. People voted because they say D or R. That's it, and that's wrong. We need to get back to voting the man, not the party. So, you know, your point is that we've made a lot of good friends, a lot of good relationships out in the district, and those remain. We'll stay friends with all of our good friends out there, our good supporters, as a matter of fact. My team has been out taking down signs and cleaning up. We're not going to leave a mess. You know, a lot of people don't clean up their stuff. My team has been out picking up our signs, and I was out with them 2 nights ago, and it was dark, and somebody yelling, Hidalgo, and I look and I wave, and I'm not dressed in a suit at the time. I was just, and they start yelling, hey, we need you, hang in there, we need you to run again. You know, so things like that, you know, encounters like that are amazing. They make us feel like we did the right thing. We'll continue. So we'll see. You know, we're not going to discount. We're not going to count it out. I'll just tell you, you're probably going to hear from me again.
Well, I think no matter what, we'll hear from you again, right? I mean, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. You're embedded in that community. That is your community. That's your home. Your family's there. Your church is there. You know, so many relationships are there. So I know we're going to see you. It's just a matter of what context, right?
That's right.
You know, the interesting... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the interesting thing is, you know, people may or may not know, I mean, different people have a different level of knowledge about government and how it works. But for those of you who don't know or aren't aware, the people in the United States House of Representatives are go up for re-election every 2 years. And as a matter of fact, this incumbent has been supposedly re-elected and will be brought in. And then he'll start immediately campaigning again. And the funny thing about this is he never campaigned the last 2 years. And I just don't see that he's going to, you know, how can the people of the 51st District be so complacent and just okay with this low high unemployment and struggles?
Yeah. I don't think they are. I really don't. I think that they realize that it's a person who has taken them completely and utterly for granted. But with that attitude of taking people for granted, and with the many people have expressed to me that a lot of concern over voter fraud, that seems, and again, that can't be proven right now, but a lot of people are still looking into that, because how can you go and be so arrogant, not campaign, unless you know there's a sure way you're going to win?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's
even
not because
Hillary campaigned.
Not because, it's not,
and she was correct.
Because it's not because he's a great politician or he's a great leader, because he certainly is not. If that were the case, he'd have something to show for his 6 years, and he has absolutely nothing. So we got to do some work there, because we got to find out what's going on, because, as you know, the Democrats, they just, you know, the thing about us Republicans, we say, hey, okay, we move on. Not them. They don't care how they win as long as they cheat. However they got to take. If they lose, if we lose, we're supposed to accept it and move on, which we do. If they lose, they find a way to cheat themselves in and steal an election.
Like we're possibly seeing in Florida. I'm not saying we are, but like we possibly have seen in Florida. Now, that brings me to another question then. What, you know, in terms of that voter fraud or potential voter fraud or issues in San Diego, because my understanding is a lot of San Diego, so they're saying, and everything's preliminary at this point for another couple of weeks, but they're saying San Diego went blue in a lot of ways. I just can't see that they would, because it's gone red, and in fact, they've seen some improvement in many cases, and I just don't. With what they did with voting in the new district attorney, that went red. I mean, that went red. So I really have a very difficult time understanding how it is that so many of these candidates or incumbents didn't campaign and just, like you said, got a shoo-in. And what do you think that you might do to go about looking into that? Because, you know, it's a real issue.
Absolutely. We got some good friends, that have been involved in voter integrity and stuff, and they're going to help us look into it because I mean, it's not if it's happening. We know there's some voter fraud going on, and I'll give you examples. I have good friends in the Imperial Valley, for example, that are Democrats, and they're good friends of mine, and they've told me this is what's going on. This is how they do it. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And they say, no, it's out and open. Everybody knows this is what they do. And one of my good friends was telling me how they do it. I'm like, that's terrible. How are we allowing that to happen? And it's as though nobody knows it's happening. Just yesterday, I talked to a good friend, and they had film of buses coming across. This was in Tecate, California, which is part of my district. People coming across the border, voting, and going back. They turned that film into Imperial Valley, and that film got lost somehow. Can you imagine?
Lost?
So yeah, they got lost. They turned it in and said, hey, let's, we got to look into this. And now the film is gone. And I was just told this last night about it. I said, okay, so it happened. There's some things going on. Like I said,
right.
We're not going to lay down and just let it happen. We got to continue to look, because if we don't, this will just continue to happen, and they'll just continue to do.
It'll get worse.
Yeah.
They get more and more brazen, right? That's what it seems like to me. Well, we're really glad that you are vocal about, how much you've built in your community, those relationships, and how much they mean to you, because that's where it's at,
Yeah.
And we're glad that you're not shuffling away the voter fraud or it could be there. You've heard about it.
Could, yeah.
But there has to be evidence and process and other things. But I'm glad you're open to seeing that might be part of the problem.
It may, and the fact of the matter is we're going to run if we run another race, like I said, my team is on fire right now. My team wants to they're ready to go right now.
They're chomping at the bit. Well, let them.
I've been blessed. I have a remarkable team. I really do. And they are awesome. They're all volunteer, so they're really some phenomenal people. We'll see what happens. Like I said, that's not an excuse. It's just but that's not what I'm saying. So I hope
no. We weren't taking that, but there is a large concern over California that
absolutely
some of this could be that, and it could be 1%, it could be 2%, it could be more. We don't know, but
because you just got to ask yourself, how does a society, California, vote in higher taxes? That's an example. Mm-hmm. What were they thinking? Let's vote for higher taxes and pay more at the gas pump. That makes no sense whatsoever. The same people that were complaining when any tax goes up, and rightly so, because we shouldn't be adding taxes. The state still can't tell. Yeah, I'm saying state still can't show where a lot of money goes. Okay, and then they want to. We're talking about 6. It should have been yes on 6, not no, and that was part of the issue as well. Carl DeMall did a good job on that. But we got to, that just doesn't make sense, and there's just the people out there pushing for higher tax. They scared people. Oh, the bridges, that's nonsense. The state elected a socialist governor who's going to, says already that he'll make sure that medical is available to illegal aliens. That's just not right. And they also put in a do-nothing politician for another 2 years. It makes you wonder, But we'll fight the good fight. We live to fight another day. We're not worried about it. A lot of great lessons learned, best procedures and things that we've learned. So we'll go forward and we'll see. We got a little time right now. My team definitely needs some. Yeah, my team needs some time off. Yeah. We're not taking a lot of time, but my team needs a little rest. They were working. Everyone was working about. Most of them were working on about 2.5 hours sleep a night for the last 3 weeks at least. So very proud of them. They did great. So we'll see what comes next.
Well, we're excited to hear what comes next, no matter what it is, and we're just glad that you're going to stand up and protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, no matter what California does in going rogue.
Yeah.
And that you're vocal about it, and that you're not afraid to speak your mind. We're very happy about that. Well, how is your? We talk so much about you, the race, the other candidate or the incumbent. We talk about your staff. How's your wife doing? Is she doing well?
My wife
is she happy to have you home?
Yeah, I'm a very blessed man. I have a very good wife and children, so I'm excited. She knows what this is about. My wife understands my call to service. Because when you're out there on the streets and you're meeting these people, it really is all about the people of the 51st District in California and the United States of America. We have great people out here. So they need someone that will work for them and serve them, and not the other way around, where they think that the American people work for them. So my wife gets that. She spent most of my career in the Marine Corps. She was right there next to me, so she understood that deployments and everything. So I mean, she gets it's kind of her mind is at least she sees me every day. That's not a bad thing. I'm not deployed. I'm not getting shot at.
Right.
So life is good.
You're out of harm's way, so to speak. Oh, well, she was always by your side every time I would come down or I was in an event and I saw you. She was, very committed to your race and supportive, and we're glad to hear that she's doing well and she's supportive in whatever your next venture is or adventure is, and that she's doing well. Well, Juan, any last words you'd like to say to everybody out there listening today?
Just let's I hear a lot of people talking about hey, what's time to pack up and leave California. It's not. We have to stay and fight.
Absolutely.
If not us, who? If not, this will turn into a complete socialist state. That's what people want. Some of them want, but I think it's a minority. I think that most people are great, God-fearing Americans that love this country, and we got to stay here and fight. People constantly ask me other questions. What are you in this stuff for? Why don't you just retire and have a good, relax and enjoy yourself? I can't. It is a matter of life and death, and I want to fight for this country, fight for the state, fight for this district, and we need help. We can't just do it alone. It's not a one-man fight. We gotta stick it out together. Because if we don't, then these socialists will try to take over. They're going to try to take our guns. They're going to try to take all of our freedoms, tax us to death, and make it miserable. And that's not what this great state is about. The left always likes to create a narrative. So that's not what we're at. Well, that's definitely not what we're about. We're not a socialist country. It's a free country. It's about it's supposed to be more citizens, less government. Right. And if we don't stand up and fight now, what are we going to leave our grandkids and our children? It's time to stand up and fight. And I'm not done fighting because I'm going to continue to work for the American people.
Right. And now I just want to clarify because, we we talk about this all the time, together as an army, we're going to fight. Look, folks, what he means by fight is standing for what is right and what is good and what is proper. And in fact, I lost my earpiece. I want to make sure I can hear you. What is right and good and what is proper, and doing it with communication and by process. We support you 100%, Juan.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad you clarified because everybody just needs to remember we don't ever need to go to the tactics that the left does.
Absolutely.
So left-wingers, the things they do, they try to go through actual intimidation and coercion and actually violence. We don't have to do that because we're on the right. That's right. We're on the right side. We actually use our brain, engage, and we have ideas and things that we can do to make it better, and we don't have to resort to bad conduct. Right. So I'm glad you reminded everybody.
I wanted to just mention it. I know. We talk about that and very fervently, but, we've seen in recent, just the last month where Maxine Waters actually was inciting violence. I mean, she was calling for people to take violent action. So you were talking figuratively. I just wanted to make sure and clarify that because I knew what you meant. Many of the people out there listening knew what you meant, but I just wanted to make sure that those people who maybe don't agree with us or sit on the same side of the field understand what you meant because we have to be clear. We have to be that clear. I'm
glad. You're absolutely correct because I would never, ever want to be mistaken to say something like Maxine Waters, because that would mean my IQ would have to drop quite a bit, and that would be terrible.
No, we can't have your IQ dropping at all. And as a matter of fact, if that happened while you're on the phone with me here talking to our listeners, your wife would be quite disappointed. So, yeah, I would be in trouble.
I would
right?
never. Yeah, I would never want to be mixed up with anything with them. You know, we don't have to resort to that. Maxine Waters and her ilk, they're just terrible. They incite. You know, you had the former Attorney General saying the same thing. When they're low, we kick. Come on, that's just ridiculous. You're adults. Act like it, and never, ever should you incite or try to get people to incite violence.
Right. We're a civil society. We need to start acting like
That's
it.
right.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, this was Juan Hidalgo. We're going to have to hear what's next, and we're trusting you, Juan. When you figure that out, when you decide, you let us know.
We'll let you guys know when we want to let everybody know. Right now, we'll keep things in-house, if you will.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's always a pleasure to talk to you. God bless you. God bless America. And let's not forget, it's all about Jesus.
Amen. Amen. Well, God bless you, and take care, and tell everyone hi.
Thank you.
And now, back to the Erin Cruz Show. Here's Erin Cruz.
Welcome back to the Erin Cruz Show. We have on with us right now Jeff Gonzalez. He ran for the 56th District for California State Assembly in 2018. He had a strong run. He made it past that top 2 primary deal, and he made it into the general election. We want to hear everything about what happened, how that rolled out. How are you, Jeff?
You know, I am super excited about what took place during the election season.
Yes.
You know, campaign season is really long, as you know, Erin, and you get to meet some really amazing people,
Right.
and we get to partner with them and volunteer with them. The
Right.
greatest part about this process was
And
on
that's what
election.
it is. It's a process.
Oh, it's a process journey, and on election day, I got a chance to see something that I guess I saw it from a different set of eyes. I got to see mom and son, dad and daughter, family members going to the election, to the polling places, and I saw them talking to each other about, oh, how do I do this and how do I do that? And it was just this big education process that, as a veteran, it just made me very proud to see families get involved.
Right, right. And this was a very interesting election cycle. As a matter of fact, we had a high registration rate in terms of California and across the nation, and turnout for midterms. Of course, in some places here in California, that didn't turn out so well in terms of the Republicans, but community involvement is high, and that's important. We want the right community involvement, but at the same time, it's important that the people are involved, really, and engaging, and like you said, the families and educating the future generations is wonderful. So now you're really involved with family. You're involved in the community out here in the Coachella Valley, and you ran for state assembly. What's next?
Well, you know, win, lose, draw, I will always be serving my community.
Right.
And so I said, all right, Jeff, you know, election's over. What's next? What do you do? And I just go back to what I know, and that's back to serving my community. As a pastor, as a Marine, as a dad, I just go back to serving. So I contacted several people that I met through this campaign season, and I said, hey, there's still homelessness, whether we win or lose. People are still hungry, homeless, helpless. We still need to do some things, and the easiest thing that we could do is collect socks. So I talked to some friends in Imperial County that are part of the 56th District. I'm talking to people in the Palo Verde Valley, which is the Blythe area,
Right.
and here throughout the Coachella Valley. So we're gonna start this sock collection drive for people that are homeless, and really what that means is people will be able to do something very simple, and that's collect socks for home, and they could do it at their church, at their organization,
Right.
wherever they're doing it. And our goal,
Can they
Erin,
be new or used, or do they all have to be new, or does it matter, or washed, or what are you looking for? I mean, what kind of socks? Big socks, small socks, all socks?
So the easiest thing to do is very simple. A pair of white men's socks.
Okay.
You don't have to get any colors or anything like that. Just a pair of white men's socks. You can get them at Costco, at Walmart, or wherever you do your shopping. And just a bag or 100 bags. Like I said, our 100,000 socks. It's a big, audacious goal. But I have a big, audacious God. So his planning versus my planning.
Right. Yeah, because in the pre-interview, you were talking about, like, you were thinking, okay, we'll do like 10,000 socks. And then you were thinking, well, what would God want me to do? What would God be doing? And then that was interesting. That was interesting. So how did that come to you? I mean, you thought, what do I want to do? And this is what it is. I mean, I know it's cold. The thing is people, everybody thinks about the desert and they think, okay, it's 120, it's blistering hot. But in the winter, people forget it gets bone-chilling cold. So cold you can barely warm your feet, even with socks.
Yeah. So, as a pastor, I care about people's souls, right? S-O-U-L-S. So in thinking and praying, I was like, well, I also want to care about people's souls, S-O-L-E-S. And this is an easy thing that people could do. A kid could do, or a senior could do, whomever, they can do this, and it's simple. So I wanted to do this, and I thought, man, okay, what's a goal that's attainable, just a quick win? Right. And I thought, well, I don't think like that. I think, like, what would God want me to do? How can I maximize these talents, the story of the talents? And
the community, because the community is really tightly knit as well. So,
absolutely.
They'll come together and they'll help and they'll donate. So you were thinking, well, what would God do? And this is what it was. 100,000 socks.
100,000. Let's go do it.
That's all? Not 1 million? No.
Well,
I won't push it.
Well, let's do 1 million. The million sock round.
I think there's a large need, and you're right. And you're on point in terms of seeking what God would have you do and serving the community. And when you talk about what the needs are, many of them are very basic. And, how do you reach people's souls? You take care of their souls. Them. And you care for them, and then they're receptive, and you're able to witness and for the kingdom of heaven. So I think that's commendable. I'm very proud of you. I mean, I'm going to ask all of our listeners I'm hoping you have the information where you want people to drop these off or donate or send them or what have you. I'm hoping you have that on you, because tonight we're going to provide that information to them, and maybe you'll get some socks.
That would be amazing if we could get some socks. Well, here in the Coachella Valley, we have a couple places that have already stepped up to do this. The first place would be the Well Church in Palm Desert. So you can Google their address, the Well Church in Palm Desert. The other place would be Hosanna City Church, and that's City, Palm Springs area, and you can do it there. So Hosanna Church. They also have a new campus in Yucca Valley, so we're getting Yucca Valley involved.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the Well Church in Yucca Valley. Also in the Indio area, we have Senator Jeff Stone's office, who wants to collaborate with us and partner with us on this as well. And in the East Valley, in Imperial County right now, we have a few places that have already stepped up, but the big one is Ford Motors, El Centro Motors in Imperial County.
They're wonderful.
Off there.
Say that again, you cut out.
You could just drop them off there in Imperial County at El Centro Motors.
Okay, perfect. And primarily men's socks. I'm just going to repeat that again. For everybody who is just joining us right now, we have on the line with us right here, right in front of you, live in the flesh, Jeff Gonzalez. He ran for the 56th Assembly District here in the Coachella Valley, which is close to my home, is my home. He's my peep right there, my peeps. He is actually talking about what's next for him right now at this point. God put it on his heart to not get 10,000 socks, but to reach 100,000 people and provide socks for them. It's very cold this time of year. The cold season just started. I went outside earlier to take out the dog, and it's freezing. there are a lot of homeless, a lot of needy who could really use that. That's wonderful, Jeff. He's mentioned that the Well Church is partnering. You said Jeff Stone is going to be partnering, and there are going to be multiple areas. We'll go ahead and we'll put that in the comments right here for you right now. Get involved if you can. This is an important thing because, like you said, Jeff, I think that you may not have made the general election, but the homeless situation was not going to be fixed overnight. The hungry situation was not going to be fixed overnight. The needs were not going to go away and be fixed overnight. This is a humanitarian issue that we have here in the state of California where there are a lot of people in need, and is right now, today, not 3 months from now, not 6 months from now. And I'm so glad to hear that you're continuing on in your service. This isn't new for you. You're a pastor. I see you up on the stage on Facebook and all of that.
Yeah, you know, we can point fingers all day, Erin, on who did what and what's going on. But the reality is you and I both know we need to be part of the solution.
We are the solution.
We are, that's right. The solution is, if someone needs food, you feed them. Right. If someone needs socks, you give it to them. If someone needs clothing, you give it to them. That's what we're supposed to do. As a matter of fact, that's what we're commanded to do. So whether I'm in politics or I'm a pastor or I'm just a regular person on the street, I'm still commanded to take care of the least of these. And that's what your listeners to do. If they want to partner with you and me and across this community, what they could do is just say, let's just buy a pair of socks and we can go to one of these locations that you have in the comments and be a part of the solution. And it doesn't matter, you know, your background. It just matters what you want to put in front of you, and that's love.
Right. That's love and someone else's needs before your own. That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. Now, is your wife helping in this? Is your family all involved? I mean, I know it seems funny. The listeners might be thinking about this, but this is really important because, you know, you are such a family man, and you're a tight-knit family, and she's supportive. Is she out there helping you?
As we say in my house, me and my family will serve the Lord.
Yes, love it. I love
in
it.
This, my family serve the Lord. So
I love that. Will serve the Lord. I love
will
that.
serve the Lord. That's right. And we do. And when things like this happen in our home, where we're like, hey, we see a need, let's go take care of the need. Then that's what we do. We're supposed to be the hands and feet, and that's what we do as a family together.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You know, I was just talking with the listeners a little bit earlier about some of the needs up in Northern California. But, you know, people don't have to look outside of their own backyard to find a need. That they are right in front of them outside of the grocery store or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of really hurting people out there. I was telling the listeners earlier that there is a gal, and this is just one story, who she and her significant other barely escaped the house. Their house was burned down. She's 2 weeks away from delivery with her first baby. It's a brand new house that they had bought together, and all of her, they couldn't take any of the baby supplies or anything. All of it's burnt. They're safe. She's, you know, her baby's safe. They're with her parents, but they've essentially lost everything. We don't have to look up there to realize that we still also have needs here at home, and we don't have to wait until dire circumstances happen to help others either. We should be really reaching out to anyone and everyone we can to help that community and be the witness of God's love and grace. So now, you're doing your community outreach. You're involved in the Valley. Are you still involved in all of these other activities? Your community outreach organizations?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Rotary. I mean, I see you all over the place.
I will always be involved in my community. Sorry, my phone just tilted and started dancing.
Okay. We're real here. We're real here. We're not any of this fake news media, Fox News, CNN News. No, we're real.
So I'll always be involved in that. You know, I'm involved in Toastmasters and Habitat for Humanity, and VFW, American Legion, you name it. That's just how I was made to always serve. So I'll always be involved in that. And if your listeners have an idea of ways that we can all partner together to answer a need, well, let's do it.
Right.
I'm a leader, and that's what I do. I go tackle.
You tackle. Well, you know, I know a lot of our listeners and Team Erin Cruz, they help veterans in need and crisis. We do a lot of different other kinds of outreach, but it does end up being national. A lot of it is national, and what I like is that you stay very, I mean, you think big, but you're really community oriented, and it's so important, especially right now. Especially right now.
If you want to change a nation and affect a nation positively, start with your neighbor.
Absolutely.
Actually,
start in the mirror.
Absolutely. If you make positive change in this community, start in the mirror.
Start in the mirror and then move outward. Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, we want to hear from you. I know this isn't going to be the last of everything Jeff Gonzalez. Certainly not. But we want to hear from you and get an update on how things are going and whether or not, well, not whether or not you reached your goal, okay? How far you went past that goal and how hard people helped to make that happen for the homeless and the needy. We want to hear back from you. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. And Erin, let me tell you something. Like I told you last time, the Erin Cruz Show always gets exclusives. I'm going to give you an exclusive teaser. There is something very, very big that I'm working on the horizon. Really? And it's going to impact a community of veterans. And it is huge. I mean, huge. So when that comes to bloom and I'm able to share it, Erin, your show will be your listeners and your watchers will be the very first ones to hear about it because
wonderful. We have a heart for the veterans.
It'll impact the community.
Yes. Well, you know, that's important. And the veterans, you know, the homeless, the veterans, the mentally struggling, mentally ill, they're always left to the side. And the way, you know, and it's just, it's such a shame. So I'm so glad. So yes, we will look forward to hearing that good news and that strong news and being able to share it because I know we have, I'd say about 75% of all of our interactions are with people who have served on some level or with the military. So, you know, it's, you know, God, family, country, and the people here, we are community and very, very veteran-oriented. So we want to hear from you. Don't be a stranger. And that time, I know this one is recorded because we have a lot of travel going on right now. But that time, we're going to take it live.
I love it. It will be live.
It will be big. Live.
And I might take you to the location where all of this, the epicenter where it will all happen.
But that would be wonderful. I'm sure everybody would love that. So, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. We really appreciate you coming on the Erin Cruz Show, sharing with us what's next, and really telling us about how we can make our community better. It starts in the mirror, and it starts with the neighbor.
That's wonderful. Right. God bless you, and Semper Fidelis.
Bye.
We will return to the Erin Cruz Show in just a moment.
I stand with you, ladies and gentlemen. I've heard you over the last few days concerned about the future of our great republic and the call for the president to take action to protect our great nation, and the lack of response from those individuals in Congress to address the immigration issues that are currently at flux. We must secure our borders. We must ensure that future generations are not burdened with the weight of those persons abusing refugee status from southern and northern nations. We must secure our country, our republic, for those people who are lawful, who love liberty and want secure freedoms, and that will obey the laws. Stand with me, and I'll stand with you, and we will fight. We will fight for what is right and what is good for our great republic, and really for the world. Please contact your representatives. Please contact the White House. Make your voice heard about the issues surrounding the caravan. We can't let one more day go by where children are trafficked and subjected to the abuses that we have seen that are so horrific. One more life lost is a tragedy. This is a human rights issue. We must see that these individuals stay in their home countries and that their governments care for their people. We must see that our southern neighbors, Mexico and other nations, are ensuring that individuals don't cross through their nation and don't gain aid and continually put these children and women at risk. We must see that individuals who live in foreign nations, who receive foreign aid, actually are the recipients of that aid, and that the corrupt governments that are abusing the system and taking advantage of the United States, seeing their people flee out of persecution and fear, that those countries are dealt with swiftly. All people have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But this does not come within just living here in the United States of America. Our rights are given by God and secured by the Constitution. Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Other nations should be equitable towards their people and serve them and work for them and help their nations flourish as ours has. We are the last refuge, the United States of America. But in order to stay that way, in order to provide and to help the world flourish, we must stay healthy as a country, and that means we must remain a nation of laws and a nation of order. Again, I say, I stand with you, stand with me, and we will unite and defend our border against those people who want to weaken our country, weaken our republic. Our next stand is to contact Congress again, is to call out President Donald Trump.
And now, back to the Erin Cruz Show. Here's Erin Cruz.
Hello and welcome back to the Erin Cruz Show. We have on with us Joseph Gertcher, and he ran for the 2018 race, California State Assembly, District number 20, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Number 20. We want to get an update from you. We had you on the show last week, Joseph, and we talked about some of the issues, some of the hurdles, some of the things that you've learned and taken from this experience. But you also wanted to share with us your experience of Election Day and night in terms of what you witnessed. Thank you for coming on the show. We can't wait to hear from you.
You're welcome. Well, since I was personally involved, I wanted to go and see the votes actually being tallied. I thought I would use this as an excuse for that. So I went down to the county courthouse on election eve and then again on Monday of this week to watch the progress of the vote counting. And it's quite an impressive operation. I have great respect for the people organizing the thing. Alameda is a pretty big county. We've got on the order of, I think, 500,000 votes this year. So that's a turnout of about 60%, which is good.
Which is what we're seeing, right?
Yep.
I think along the lines of California and even other states is exceptionally high for midterm.
Right, yes. And it takes a bit. You have to talk to the people to find out exactly how the process goes, so I can explain that to you if your listeners are interested.
They would love to hear it. I know a couple of people were really excited to have you back on the show and hear about that, because this is something that the media doesn't talk about a lot. And obviously schools aren't teaching about what goes on. And most people think they vote, and okay, 1 minute after the bell goes off and the polls close,
right.
That's it. You know, Fox calls that Newsom wins when Cox has a higher percentage rate. All of that kind of shenanigans happens, but that's not the real world.
It doesn't work that way, no. First thing you have to realize is that most of the people vote by mail these days. So I think only in this election, only a quarter of them actually go to the polls and vote. And if I'm one of the poll voters, because I just like to participate and actually see what happens, and since I'm retired, I can go in midday when there's no crowd. But
no line? Awesome.
No line. And I get to visit the elementary school, and all the little kids were lined up there watching the voters come in and getting a civics lesson.
That's wonderful.
So the important thing to note about voting in person, first off, there's only a quarter of the votes are cast that way. And there is in California, there is absolutely no check on whether the person coming to vote is actually the person who is registered to vote. You do sign on this little book, you sign your name in there, but nobody checks your signature. So anybody could walk in and vote for you instead. So that's 1/4 of the votes. Most of the votes come in through the mail. They're early voting if they arrive before Election Day, and then they're technically called late votes if they arrive after Election Day. But in California, so long as the ballot is postmarked by Election Day, it counts. So quite a few of them do come in afterwards. They can go up to 3 days after the election to arrive. And at the county courthouses, where this is, which is the epicenter for all these ballots, you can watch what happens on election night. So I can explain how that works. Basically, the Register of Voters folks are working very hard to pre-count the mail ballots that come in, because they want to get as much of the backlog out of the way as possible. So at election night, when the polls close, they press the button on the machine, and it finally adds up the ballots that they've already pre-scanned, the mail ballots. And when you hear on the 10 o'clock news who has lost or won the election, it's entirely from the mail-in ballots that they've been able to get to by that point in the evening. And none of the votes that were actually cast at the polls have been yet counted. So then
they haven't arrived yet. I mean,
they haven't arrived yet
at the facility.
Yes,
wherever it is that they're being, the votes are being cast.
Right. The votes that are actually at the polls take about 3 hours to get to the county courthouse. They have fleets of vans that visit the precincts. There are about 800 or so in Alameda County, and pick up the materials and deliver them to the courthouse. You can see a long line of vans wrapping around the courthouse, and they're all bringing in the ballots.
Something to see. Did you take pictures of this event?
I wish I had. You can take pictures outside, and inside told us no, but then on the other hand, down in Broward County, Florida, they are taking pictures, so I'm not sure.
Well, I'm glad a few people took pictures, but, they also weren't within, certain confines of rules and other kinds of things.
Right. So the important thing is the custody of the ballots. You want to make sure that you know where everything came from, where it went, and that nothing gets slipped in, which could be an invalid ballot. So the Register of Voters waits until everything has come in, all the conditional or provisional ballots that might be cast at the precincts, and any mail ballots that they've collected, people can drop them off. And those are all stored away under lock and key. And then they finally start counting the ballots that were cast on election day. And in fact, they, in a sense, are already counted. They're recorded on tape. And the only thing that goes into the courthouse is a little tiny cassette tape that has the ballots from each precinct, the record of them, and they're put into machines that do the counting. The ballots themselves go to a warehouse somewhere in the county where they're stored for almost 2 years in case a recount is needed.
I think they need a very, very, very audacious audit.
I'll tell you where that comes. So I think, for the ballots that are cast.
Let's get back to the. Okay, so we have these big vans. They're all lined up. They're coming to the courthouse. Sure. It looks like a chain of hot dogs, just big white hot dogs. They're waiting. They got all this precious cargo in the back.
Yes.
They're coming to the courthouse, but are they delivered then with their respective cassette? Is that what I'm hearing that you're saying?
No, the ballots are separated when you read them into the machine. This is the way it works.
I see what you were saying. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify from earlier. Okay.
That's right. Ballots go into a big bin at the bottom, and they are collected, those bins, and they're carried to a warehouse in Oakland. Right. And they're all bundled up, and it's tracked where they came from in case anybody has to go look at the actual ballots. And all that comes into the courthouse in a red suitcase-like thing is the tape from the precinct, along with the book where people have signed their names, because that's part of the record of the election. Right. And these are inserted into the Register of Voters computer system, which reads the votes that have been recorded there and then adds them to the official tally. And all that process finishes about 2 o'clock in the morning. Huh. So they release by 2 o'clock the ballots that have been cast at the precincts, plus the early mail ballots that they've gotten around to counting. And then it takes a long time to do all the rest of the ballots, the remainder of the mail ballots and provisional ballots that have been counted at the precincts.
Right, they have to confirm, and they have to compare and make sure that somebody who cast a provisional ballot didn't vote in person by mail or any other way.
Yes, right.
More than once.
And the time-consuming part of that is checking the signatures on the outside of the ballots, the provisional ballots or the mail-in ballots. So those are checked against a computer system that the Secretary of State operates that contains the signature you wrote down when you registered to vote. And the comparison criteria is that there should be one significant feature of the signature that matches, like it could be the way you write the initial of your last name or the initial of the leading character of your first name, something like that. So it's not a very strong comparison, but it is a comparison.
So in other words, if you haven't registered or re-registered to vote in some time and you notice you're getting a little sloppy with your handwriting and your signature is changed, it might be a good idea just to go revalidate your registration to vote and update your signature card.
You could do that, and because there's a central repository for all voter registrations, the Secretary of State operates this. It doesn't matter how many times you register to vote. They'll keep track of it and make sure you are only registered.
You're not registering twice. You're updating your registration.
Right, and if you go to another county because you changed your residence, then they'll figure that out and they'll delete the old registration.
Or you can just confirm it with contacting your registrar. But I think that's an important note to make, though, because, sometimes over time, either, sometimes people get sick or they break a hand or they, whatever it might be in their life, they get older, their signature changes. It's something that people should take into account, especially if they're concerned about their vote counting. Just do everything you can to make sure that you're responsible.
Yes, right. And you can also, by the way, look online and type in your name and say, have you gotten my ballot, my mail-in ballot, and did you accept it? Mm-hmm. And it'll say yes or no. There's the Register of Voters in your county, and also the Secretary of State has a website for that. So if you're a mail-in ballot person, I would suggest doing that for this election too, just to see what happens.
Just to make sure.
The important thing, though, is all of these mail ballots and provisional ballots, they're divided into 4 categories, okay? The first one, this is with the signature check and all that. The first ones are the ones that are good to go, So then the envelope is opened up, they're put into the scanners, and it's counted. Okay. The second batch are the ones that go to remake. Okay. Now that sounds kind of ominous. If you
it has a procedure to it, but they literally do.
Yes, they do. Yes,
remake your ballot.
And why does this happen? Well, it could be that you went to the wrong precinct by mistake, or you live in Berkeley but you work in Fremont, so it's easier for you to stop in at Fremont and try and cast a ballot, and they'll let you do it. But then you're going to be casting one of these provisional ballots that's going to be looked at. And all they have in Fremont is a Fremont city ballot, not a Berkeley city ballot. So you have to take whatever you put on the Fremont ballot and remake it on a Berkeley ballot. And of course, you won't be able to vote for certain things because certain names aren't on one that are on the other and such. But the remake is, from my observation, quite a few go through remake. And then, of course, some people just spill ketchup on their mail-in ballot, or their coffee stains on it.
Or sent in the mail. That's another common reason. The Secretary of State actually has an entire policy that they follow, or they say they follow, when they come in contact with ballots that need to be remade. And there is there's a classification and criteria for each situation and instance.
Right.
And it's at their discretion.
It's one person reads the old ballot and then another person marks it, and then they switch positions and they read them again and check it, and then it goes to a supervisor to make sure that it's all okay. So there's quite a few checks in there. But on the other hand, it's not that the parties or the political parties ever supervise any of this. So these are clerical workers at the registrar of voters, not any supervision by courts or by political observers. There are also a group of ballots that go into the yellow box. They're flagged by the Secretary of State's computer system as being ballots that have to be looked at in more detail. So I couldn't get a straight explanation for what these were exactly. It could be that...
Are those the undervotes or overvotes, or people who've written on a line item?
Undervotes and overvotes are things where you've voted twice or you haven't voted at all. That comes when you actually look at the ballot, but we're still looking at the outside of the envelope. And the Secretary of State's computer determines that some ballots are yellow, and so they have to be examined more carefully. And finally, there are simply invalid ballots, and that's the red batch. And those are not counted. The envelopes are not opened at all, whereas I'm not quite sure what's done with the yellow ballots, but there's some investigation of those. Nothing
at
is...
least they're looked at. They're examined.
At the outside.
But this red batch, what happens to them and what are they?
Well, for example, it could be that you are, the Secretary of State's computer might say that you are registered to vote in Los Angeles. And this is a polling place in Alameda County. You can't vote here no matter what they may have given you a provisional ballot to fill out, but it does not count. Okay, even though the governor's race is on all the ballots, they will not count anything. If you're registered out of county, then your ballot goes into a red bin and it's not looked at. So I think that, entirely reasonable. You should know what county you're registered in, but that's what those are. Now, what I find interesting is that there's no way to find out how many red, yellow, green, or blue are the ones that are good to scan, come up in any polling location. So one young man, one poll watcher from a campaign who was very interested in the outcome because there was a close race here, he said, well, the red ballots, those could be people who actually are trying to cast fraudulent ballots.
You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. They could walk into a polling station, they could give completely wrong information just in the hopes of getting a hold of a ballot that they can fill out. They might write the name in some clearly inaccurate way. I think you have to put your birth date on there. They might have the birth date wrong, something like that.
Well, the provisional ballots have an affidavit. You know, it's pretty comprehensive.
Right. So there's a lot of information to check that could flag the ballot as being something that can't be counted, right? But they don't actually give the statistics on how many invalid ballots were turned in or filled out. And I think that would be an interesting indicator just to let you know, what's the error rate here?
Well, they should be providing all of the data, is the way I see it, is every ballot taken in, every ballot counted. And it doesn't matter what it meant in terms of what the contents were. Everything should be allocated and have its space for reporting, because that was the one thing when I ran for United States Senate I found peculiar on all of these updates that I would receive, was they would talk about, okay, we have approximately this many, mail-in, this many provisional still left to count, approximate, and the target date which they thought that they would be finished. But the one number that they wouldn't talk about were the hand count, the rewriting, the hand count, and then the invalidated. They never told you that amount. And for me, when you have a tabulation of all of these votes, 1 + 1 is 2. Okay? 1 + 2 is 3. You don't have 1 + 1 is 3. Where'd the other ballot go? I mean, really, it comes down to just giving the information to the public so we could see it. Transparency.
You can Google estimated unprocessed ballots, and that'll bring up a PDF file at the Secretary of State's site, which every day is updated, and it contains the vote by mail, the provisional, the conditional, and quote other, whatever that is, and then the estimated total remaining ballots for each of the counties. That's one thing to look at, but it does not break it down, as you say, further into actually invalid ballots, into flagged yellow ballots. And I think that would be very illuminating if they would do that. And then you can see the other thing. So is there voter fraud? Well, I don't know what's going on in Florida. I don't think that in California, or at least in Alameda County, that you discover a pile of ballots in the closet, because it seems like the custody of the ballots is pretty well taken care of. Once they're removed from the polling place or they come in from the mail, then they're under lock and key in their watch. But the thing that could happen is you could just have a lot of people go out and turn up at a polling station and say, oh, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to vote, but I want to cast a vote. Okay, that's a conditional or a provisional ballot. And if that somehow gets through the system, if you're good at faking a person's signature, you might very well cast ballots that are illegal that way, and they would get through the system. And since there's no indication of how many of these red bin and yellow bin ballots are actually encountered, you don't know if this is a widespread occurrence or if it's just very rare. I mean, I saw quite a few.
How many did you see?
Well,
how many could you gather you saw in comparison to some of the others? I mean, was it something that it stood out to you and you thought, oh, wow, that's enough that we kind of should know what's going on?
It could have been on the order of 5% of all the ballots. No,
which is enough to swing a vote.
Yeah, by the time certainly a close race. By the time I got there, they were only counting provisional ballots. So all of these are a little bit dicey to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. It's people who didn't vote according to the way they should have for whatever reason. So that's a pretty big error rate, actually. But it would be nice to know those numbers. Then the other thing, so in Alameda County, this is, I give them credit. Every day they turn out the vote count for all the races. Mm-hmm. So they started on the morning after the election. That was initial vote count. And then every day at 5 o'clock, they issue unofficial results, okay? And you can track every race and see what's happening. Not all counties do that, so it's very nice that they do in Alameda. But here's the curious thing, okay? The fraction of votes for a Republican candidate only goes down. If you're in a race, if you're a Republican in a race with a Democrat, your fraction of the total vote in this race, in this election in Alameda County, it only goes day by day. There's 13 races where you have a Republican against a Democrat, and the Republicans generally drift down, and the Democrats generally drift up. And so if there happens to be a close race, well, they're going to cross at some point, and then you flip the winner from what was announced on election night. And I spoke to some of the candidate reps who were at the city hall or the courthouse, and they said, well, that's because Republicans vote early. So they tend to be a little more Republican in the initial vote count, the early mail and maybe the election day. And then the late mail ballots are going to be more Democratic. But I don't know that Republicans are special people. I mean,
everybody's busy. Californians are busy, right? I mean,
you know, you should see my garage. My garage is a mess. Okay, I'm a Republican, but I'm not neater than the Democrat who lives next door. So I don't necessarily buy this that Republicans vote early and Democrats vote. Maybe they do, but it's just strange that in 13 races, the fraction of votes given to the Republicans, all 13 of them, goes down, and the fraction given to Democrats goes up.
Well, the reason why I find that interesting and actually somewhat problematic is when we look at the sampling, because at the very end of the election, after they're done counting just about everything, if you have voting machines, what they do is they take a sample vote. They take 1% of the vote.
Right.
They compare the electronic votes from the machines to a canvassing 1% sample, just to make sure that the numbers are representative, to confirm that the machine is not faulty, if you will. And that's just a 1% sample. And if they're expecting, you know, some sort of a shift, Republican-Democrat shift, some of them vote where, some of them happen to live where all the machines are versus where all of the paper ballots are. I mean, the idea behind that would be that the machine wouldn't be a representation of the same, you know, in the room as it would the mail-in ballots and the provisional and everything else from the canvas. So
because
they didn't even finish that until, you know, they don't even do that until supposedly the very end.
Very end. It's a bit of a red herring, though, because all you're doing there is checking the machine. Did the machine scan the ballots properly?
Well, they're checking the sample to make sure that the algorithm isn't flickering and that it's representative, that it's matching.
Right, and it is adding things up properly. But it's, and it has to match exactly, or they have to find out why. So I think, though, that the potential for gaming the system comes in these many, many provisional ballots that are tossed in, and there doesn't seem to be any statistics on them. I just wish I had a little more information.
Well, we don't have information except for, you know, what we read and what maybe the poll observers or because not the poll observers, but the Election Integrity Project actually sends people out. They watch, and they can watch the entire process happen. But what those tallies are, that doesn't necessarily mean that they know that. They're just watching the process to make sure that nobody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing necessarily. So I think that I would agree with you that the concern is that what if, you know, during that confirmation of those provisional ballots, that process, there's a human element.
Well, yes, that is a concern, and exactly how they...
And you could have the human element have an issue, and you could also have the computer algorithm have an issue, or a computer issue. Right.
Well, also, I mean, I don't want to impugn the voters or the workers in the courthouse, but I mean,
well, let's face it.
Let's face it. This is an overwhelmingly Democrat county, and do they really care that much if a Republican vote gets changed? I mean, if I were just a poll worker, I would, you know, not care all that much, honestly, because you know that the Democrat is going to win in the end anyway. So I can imagine that there's this sort of a mindset that says, oh, well, it can go, this can happen, and it's not really a biggie. And every Republican in California has encountered this, you know, prejudice that you get from the Democrats, and I can see where it seeps over in little ways into the ballot counting process. But my main concern, though, is that you don't really know ultimately where the ballots are coming from. And particularly this thing about walking in and just being able to sign and no checking whatsoever, not even against the computerized value. I think a good thing to do actually would be to take 1% of the ballots and check the signature in the book against what the Secretary of State's signature is and see if the signatures match. I think that would be interesting. But they don't check the ballots cast on election day at all. I've seen people come in also trying to cast provisional ballots in my own polling place, and these people looked out of place. I mean, I'm in a certain socioeconomic demographic, and the guy who was trying to cast ballots was clearly not from the community. And
right. Which in many cases, you know, I don't know specifically where you live, but in neighborhoods where I've lived at, it's generally, you know, for example, one neighborhood, it was in somebody's garage. The polling place was in a garage. That the community comes together, and it's everybody you know. And in some cases, it's a smaller community, and everybody, of course, is mindful of the rules and everything. But you know if it's somebody who's not from your community. They don't look. It's very clear.
Most people, and this guy was way too well dressed and way too well spoken to be a member of my community. Well, so it was just stuck in my mind that it was unusual. And I wonder if other things like this go on. So.
It could very well, you know. I mean, it's all speculation, I guess it would be. But it's interesting to talk about because it's something that, you know, a lot of wondering, quandary, you know, tension comes about when especially, you know, we have a lot at stake. We just watched that the Democrats are going to push to how many billions of dollars are they going to be spending now, they've decided. I mean, it's a lot of money out of our pockets, and there's a lot at stake. And to see that there could be potential for fraud or you just want to know that it's an honest vote. We're America, you know, and have the checks, have the balances, make sure that everything's done right and well, have spot audits, make sure that, you know, things are in order and that the public feels secure about their vote. Because when the public feels secure about their vote, they're going to vote. When they think their vote doesn't matter, they just doesn't matter. Why should I?
Yeah.
And we all should participate. So it's really, I think, interesting to hear what you're saying. So now after all of this, because I kind of want to get back to these vans, the red bins, the yellow bins, everything's done. What next? It's just that all of these things get put away in storage. And
yes. Everything is stored for 22 months until they have to throw it away to make room for the next primary election, which would be in almost 2 years. So you could, you know, recreate everything by pulling it all out of storage, but you wouldn't know. I mean, it wouldn't do much more than count the ballots you've already collected and decide. So
how was this experience for you? I mean, did it give you ease of mind, or do you have some concerns? I mean, how did you walk out of this thing? As a man, as a citizen of the United States, somebody who ran for office and cares about the country. I mean, no, but I'm serious. You're laughing. I really want to know.
Let's not get into that. Okay, first off, basically people only vote for their party as near as I can tell. So you have almost no chance of really moving a county like Alameda one way or the other.
Right.
I'm not 100% confident of the way the votes are counted. It seems to me that they'll let me in there and I can look at the stuff and I can talk to the supervisor, but I can't really figure out what individual people are doing. And particularly when it comes down to verifying the signatures on the mail-in ballots, which is the really big thing, mail-in provisional, I have no confidence in that whatsoever. Also, I think it would be very easy to just, fraudulently vote a number of ballots. You could send people out to different precincts, have them fill out provisional ballots, and I would expect... Or
drop in mail-in ballots. There's so many people who complained about their mail-in ballots missing.
Exactly. Right. Then you have even less to deal with the poll workers. So, I'm not entirely confident of that. I would feel better if everybody had a memory stick or had a chip in the back of their head and they had to be scanned when they cast a vote. But I guess we don't want to do that for
let's not give the government any more ideas than it has the ideas to do already. You're telling them they can spend more money and do something to us. Yeah, no.
The tech companies are already chipping up their employees, so it's going to come for the rest of us too.
Well, I am concerned about the provisional ballots. I'm also concerned about the mail-in ballots, the ones people say they haven't received, and then they have to go vote provisionally. Right. Or they show up thinking that, well, it didn't come in the mail. I signed up for permanent mail. Where's my ballot? And they say, well, you don't have a ballot here. Well, where did my other one go? Is that waiting in a bin somewhere?
Right. Yeah, for example, if you're talking about the 1% check, another 1% check that would be really useful would be to call all the people and say, did you actually mail a ballot in? And, was this your ballot? That's a 1% check, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do. There are a segment of those ballots where they do contact the individual, and the individual has a certain number of days to respond and verify their signature. There is that. I don't know that they actually do call them. I would hope, and I would trust that they would do their job and be doing that. But that's not out of the scope of what they can do. I mean, in terms of if you're looking at the integrity of the vote, there are a lot of different ways that can happen. I know some people want a voter ID. Other people want, I've heard some individuals saying, well, why can't, DMV has our thumbprint, why can't we just use that, and have that sort of thing as far as tracking and validating. There's a lot, I think, that could be thought about in terms of securing the vote and confirming the actual person who logged that vote. But it all comes down to figures don't lie, but liars can figure. Or something like that.
That sounds very good. Is that
it just, you hope humans aren't corrupt or corrupted or corruptible, but, I think that it would be good for California specifically, I mean, with how large we are, to have a comprehensive system where we do check, and we have another system to check these things, because the IRS audits.
Yes, right.
And I know everybody, they just want it done and they just want to vote, but these things take time, and it's the future of our republic. So now, well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, it's certainly rounding out your experience as a candidate.
When you think of it, I'm probably one of only 50 people in the entire county who has ever gone down to, and this is a county of 1.6 million people, who's ever gone down to watch the votes being counted. So it's a very, very small fraction of the people who actually see this, and I found it very interesting to do it.
It's important to do it, and I'm glad that you did, and that you were able to share it with us, because it is such a valuable part of our republic and everything that holds us up as a country, and people don't understand the complexity behind it because of Fox News and CNN.
Right. Yeah, the whole mail-in ballot thing, although it makes life very easy for lots of people, it adds enormously to the complexity of voting.
And the movement for fraud, because
yes.
the United States Postal Service is the guy in between.
Yeah,
and they need a bailout, and who's going to give it to them? Let me just ask, because I'm trying to.
Whenever something gets complicated, the possibility of ginning the system goes up.
Right.
So, I'm beginning to think that, everybody can manage to go and actually cast a vote at a polling place. That might be a better way to do it, but I probably wouldn't win that argument.
Well, in the olden days, they had a paper ballot, and they went and they cast their vote.
Right, right.
And I know there were a lot less people, but we also have a lot more people to help count. So, and this is a very important part of our, the way our country runs. And, if there's one thing we do right here in the United States of America, it should be getting the vote right and retaining our liberties and our freedoms, because in almost every other country, I was watching one, really quick, I was watching one special, and they said, the United States is an interesting place, because where our taxes are concerned, we tell the IRS what we think our dues are, what we need to pay. And then they come back and say, okay, yeah, you're right. Or they say, no, you need to get more. And in the case of the vote, we have now seen more corruption and fraud in terms of what we think is fraud, but we're not sure. But historically speaking, we have a lot of strong integrity in our election system and our process, being a republic, especially on the federal level. I mean, it has, with the Electoral College and other checks and balances, is so secure, if you will. So many other countries are corrupt and have mass amount of fraud, and I mean, it's just it's the nation's going to chaos, literally. So we have to secure that.
Yes, right.
So what cost is too high? I don't know.
Exactly.
So, and I'm not for big government. You know that. So, so what do you have to say to our listeners about the process and about your experience as a candidate as we wrap up here, and in closing, to share with them, because people have really enjoyed hearing your talks.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I wish I had more experiences as a candidate. I mean, all I could do was to walk my neighborhoods and go to some street fairs. You've heard the story about that one. And introduce myself as a candidate. So I got to speak to a lot of people and hear views, pro and con. I wish that I had been able to debate with my opponent, but that doesn't happen.
It didn't happen for a lot of people with incumbents.
No, if it's a Republican against a Democrat in California, they'll never schedule a debate. Only if it's two Democrats who are competing for one of these top two race slots. So that I guess is one of my big regrets. And then the other regret is that it's so hard to communicate to large numbers of people unless you actually do it in person by walking. The newspapers are almost non-existent. There's your interview, and I had a blogger who did an interview with me. There are a few others who will do interviews. But I mean, honestly, you're not getting the same audience that ABC, NBC,
I think we reached about 40,000 people with your interview, but it's not targeted. Wow. Yeah, I think with all of them and all of the sharing with everybody who shared it. I mean, you can't look at YouTube which says 40, because by the time it gets to 70, the next morning I wake up and it says 10. They lie to you, but I have Google Analytics. And we know, based off of the programs we use, that we reach, with myself and our other team members, we reach quite an expansive audience. But again, this is national and actually worldwide, so 40,000, 30,000 people is not in your neighborhood necessarily.
It's targeting that's the key, and that's what's hard to do. in California, in the assembly districts, you can see, the problem basically is that they're too large to personally walk, and they're too small to be a single media network or a single media zone. So you can't really reach your audience any reasonable way. I think that the legislature in California must be vastly expanded to make the districts smaller so that you really can walk a district.
You can have proper representation in your communities. It's absolutely, I agree with that. Again, if we want to get government under check, there's some places we need to adjust for the population and adjust accordingly for the vote and other things and spend the money in other areas where we're going to save a lot. You know, and I do think that needs addressing, and I'm so glad you brought that up in both interviews, because it's important, and you now know firsthand. Right,
I've seen it. Yeah, it really is. If we had a larger legislature, I hope that the special interests would not have enough money to contribute to every one of them. They can contribute to all 40 state senators, but if they had to contribute to 120 state senators, they might not be able to influence them.
They would start being spread thin, and the other thing is it's harder to lobby such a big body, and then you know, you also open up for a lot more competition, and the community also has a lot more input in terms of what their representation is. And we also talked about different oversights for the regions or the districts, and having proper oversight, because that's another issue, is the non-gerrymandering that's happening, and some of these other, you know, redistricting things, fiascos. We have to get back to, you know, citizen-run government where we're really, the people are involved.
Yes, we do.
Have a voice, so.
I'm going to sum up by saying one thing. You know, they say that you think it's a platitude when the president or any politician says that you have to win your freedom. Every generation has to do that again. And I can see that it's really true in California, for example. That there's a lot of the way the state is operating that is not really representing the people. And we have to bring it back, or it's going to continue to go the wrong way. Very soon.
Well, thank you again for sharing, and thank you for coming on the Erin Cruz Show. And you know, don't be a stranger around here. If you get involved in your community again, we want to hear from you. And I'm sure, and you know, 2022 comes approaching along, I'll be in your area and visiting and whatnot.
Oh, I forgot to announce, I'm considering running for president.
You are?
Yeah, my congressman is doing it too, so I think I should also run as well. So I'm waiting for him to announce, and then I'll announce. How about that?
Wow. You know?
Yeah. Me and Eric Swalwell can finally debate.
Wouldn't that be fabulous?
Yes. We can start right here in Contra Costa in Alameda County.
I mean, why not?
Right.
Why not? I mean, I'm so done with these incumbents. They're just so egotistical and arrogant, and they're not any better than you or I. You know, I'm an equalist.
Well, I hope that you'll be running in the future sometime again.
I am 2022.
Okay,
so we're
great.
already fundraising. So I'll be traveling up there, and I'm running against Kamala Harris. So I'll be traveling up there, and I'll come and say hello and check out Alameda County, and maybe walk by the courthouse.
Okay. Yeah, well, you might have an open seat sometime, too. You know, you never know. So if you need someone, please contact me. I'd be happy to work on your team.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for stepping up and running for Assembly. It's a large task, and certainly one that's helped us gain information and knowledge. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, great.
Right,
thanks.
Joseph. Take care. God bless.
Bye.
This will be an election of Kavanaugh, the caravan, law and order, and common sense. That's what it's going to be.
of peace. Think, let your mind go, let yourself be free. Freedom, 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 yeah, freedom. People walk around every day playing games and taking scores, trying to make people lose their minds. Be careful you don't lose yours. Yeah, think about that love of peace. Think, let your mind go, let yourself be free. You need me, I need you. Without each other there ain't nothing we can do. Yeah. Freedom, don't stay home. Freedom, get out and go. Freedom, freedom, freedom. We've got one chance to make it last. Freedom. Think about our Constitution, don't lose sight. Think about our rule of law and our precious Bill of Rights. Climb aboard the train, November 6th.
We really hope that you enjoyed that song from Songbird. She really puts a lot of effort into her music. Please go ahead. You're going to see her link to her music down below in the chat. Click it, open it, watch some of the other music she's put together, and share them with your friends and family. She definitely has a strong message to help make California and make America great again. On to our next guest.
Thank you to our many partners and friends in China for your strong commitment to growing the economic and cultural ties between our two great countries. I'm especially pleased that California's first trade office has its home in Shanghai, and I have a very special connection with Shanghai. As mayor of San Francisco a long time ago, I had the honor of establishing a sister city relationship with Shanghai.
And now, back to the Erin Cruz Show. Here's Erin Cruz.
There's so much to tell you about, but right now we're going to talk about the California wildfires up in Northern California. There are very, very specific needs that are being had up there in terms of the community. As a matter of fact, many of our own volunteers for my U.S. Senate run have been impacted. Here at the Erin Cruz Show, we sympathize and we really feel for the loss that these people have experienced, some of them total devastation in terms of losing their entire homes. And in the case of one family, one new family, they not only lost their entire home, they lost the contents that were in it, which were all the baby gifts that their unborn, beautiful baby Emily Michelle received from her baby shower. Baby Michelle, Emily Michelle, is due in just 2 weeks. This couple needs your help. You know, certainly we may not be able to help with providing everything in terms of giving them a new home, but any contribution will help. They're completely displaced. I hear they're staying with family for right now, but this is a really scary time. This is their first child together, and they've lost everything just 2 weeks out from this young mother giving birth to her firstborn child, Emily. You know, we talk a lot about abortion. We talk a lot about unborn rights. Well, the right to life. Well, this beautiful baby is going to have a life, and she has parents who love her, family who love her. That's what's important, yes, but it's also, there's a great need when you bring a child into this world and to lose everything in terms of being able to care for and provide for this child, diapers, blankets, car seats, things like that. I know individuals have helped. She started a registry. We'll be posting that information. I believe I should have it later on today. But what we did was I made a GoFundMe page for Emily, along with some Team Erin Cruz members who helped. We really have a heart for the people, and we want to make sure that if we can do our small part, we want to. We have more individuals who, like I said, and I hear people are pulling together. We're going to have for you later on a bunch of resources, individuals who are working together up there where you can send your donations in terms of blankets and supplies. We're going to have that for you shortly. Right now, this mother and her unborn child really need some of these care gifts to help them. And you know, I'm calling out to all of you to see if you're able to do so. Even if it's 100 of us and we give $1 each, if it's 100 of us, we give $10 each. Whatever you can do, please think about it, consider it. It's really important that we reach out to our fellow citizens in need. It's so important. So I wanted to leave you with this information. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of this information in the chat if I can get it to pull up. I'm not sure if it will. It's not always user-friendly, but I want to make sure that you have it because this mother, you know, she's devastated. She doesn't know what to do. She's scared. You know, it's a tough time, as many people up there are scared. But come on, everybody. I know we can pull together and really, really come out and help her. So let me go ahead and put this in the chat here, if it will let me. Do any of you have questions in terms of the fire and what's going on in Northern California? I know it's a big concern. We have at least 4 members of our team up there. I'm going to take a look and see. Let's see here. The fire and what's going on in Northern California. I know there we go. We have at least 4 members. There we go. I went ahead and I know you heard that, but I wanted to make sure and paste that information there. I see a lot more people are just now joining. Thank you. My understanding is they need blankets, they need clothing, they need socks. It's very, very cold up in Northern California, and those are some of those needs. So we are going to go ahead. Yes, they did. Thank you, Deb. I see your comment. Yes, it's devastating. You know, one of the most important things here in California is having proper representation. And right now in the state, we don't have that. And the forests, along with other state and federal lands, aren't being managed properly. And the citizens are concerned. And we really need to band together for these communities who are being impacted like this, because it's just, the news will press on in a week or two, but these people will still be recovering. And we need to remember that, right? And really be there for them. Well, you know, they are involved, and she is staying with her parents right now. But you know, it's their new house burnt. You know, they're a new family. She does have resources in terms of family members and her significant other, but they had everything set up. It's just it's a devastating loss. I'm going to be brought to tears because, you know, it's a lot. So. Absolutely, yes, please do so. I put the GoFundMe, $5, $10, whatever you can do to help. It'll go directly to them, and they can, you know, they can spend it on recuperating those needs for the child. Yes, it is, Deb. But you know what? We can pull together, and it's through tragedies like this that we get stronger. We become more united, and we'll get to the space where we're going to take back this state. But right now, we need to help everybody here who's going through that tragedy. I know, yes, they should, and I'm sure they are, but they're overloaded. The entire town of Paradise burnt down, with just the exception of a few homes. I mean, it's devastating. So it's something where the church should help, but when everybody in that town has lost everything, you know, they'll have one another, they'll have their community, but it's going to take time. Yeah, so, but I don't want to be depressing, but the reality is this: we have to pull together for California. We saw what happened in Houston. You know, Puerto Rico was devastating. You know, the government didn't even do what it needed to do. But we saw what happened in Texas. When Texas had a hurricane, they pulled together and they fought for each other and they helped one another and they banded together and they helped rebuild those areas that were lost and lift one another up in a way which we haven't seen in this country for a very long time. We need to see that same thing here in California. I'm understanding that a lot of help is pouring out up there in the area, but it is so impacted. It's still burning that people are being told, be careful, don't go in, it's not safe. It might be a little bit safer now. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the fire warnings, but, you know, people up till yesterday evening were told, don't go back in. And the concern is some trees are still at risk of falling. There are a lot of dangers. People just want to know, is my house gone? But it's something where this entire community was impacted. So we really need to pull together as Californians and help where we can, even if it's all of us just helping in our own way a small bit. I know one of our volunteers is sewing blankets for some of the animals. Some 100 animals are in Chico Airport, she was told, being cared for. And she and some other friends are putting together sleeper outfits. They came together and got material, and they're sewing little night jammies for the kids, all ages, small, medium, and large. I mean, you think about the most basic needs that these individuals have, and ladies and gentlemen, they escaped with literally their person, many of them, because the fire came in so quickly. So, yes, if you can help little baby Emily, who's still in her mommy's tummy, $5, that would be great. Again, I'm going to put the registry probably in a tweet and on Facebook, because this is going to be over by the time I get that in. But I want to put that out there, so if you maybe don't want to give money, you could, if she has a specific need, you can go ahead and tag that item, and I believe it auto ships to she and her family to help baby Emily, who's going to be coming into this beautiful state of California in just about 2 weeks. Well, everybody, thank you for everything. God bless all of you. Of course, absolutely. Share the broadcast, get involved, and as always, God bless all of you. God bless California, and God bless the United States of America. Good night.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's erincruz.com. Thank you for joining us, and see you at the same time and the same place next week.